Good day, everyone. Our topic is population and sample in research. This is video one of this topic. I am Keshi Patricia Mere Somono, Professor of Educational Evaluation, Research and Statistics, Nanda Azikiwe University. Our learning outcomes are, after watching this video, you should be able to define population in research, explain different types of population in research, identify the range of population size of a given research topic, determine when the entire population could be studied or part of it, define sample in a research, calculate sample size of a given population, state the general rules to sample size, define some terminologies in population and sample. What is population in research? In research, population means the totality of individuals, objects, events as defined by the purpose of the study. It is an aggregate or totality of all the objects, subjects, or members that conform to a set of specifications or as delimited by the scope of the research. Examples: undergraduate students' perception of online learning mode in universities in Anambra State. The population will be all the students in all the levels in both public and private universities in Anambra State. Another example, availability and utilization of laboratory facilities for teaching physics in public secondary schools in Imo State. The population includes all the physics laboratory facilities in public secondary school in Imo State. We are talking about population. In ordinary sense, population will mean the number of people living in a given geographical environment. But in research, it has expanded meaning where population will include persons, objects, events, activities as defined by the purpose of the research. Types of population in research. There are two types of population. We have target population and accessible population. Target population. This is all the members of the specified group. It refers to the entire group of individuals or objects in which a researcher is interested as defined by the purpose of the study. Target population, that is the universe, is the entire group of people or objects to which the researcher wishes to generalize the findings to. Take example of our topic, undergraduate students' perception of online learning mode in universities in Anambra State. The target population will be all the students in all the levels in both public and private universities in Anambra State. Accessible population. Accessible population is the members of the group within reach. It is a subset of the target population and is also known as the study population. In the topic, we have said that accessibility, the accessible population will be all the students in all the levels in both public and private universities in Anambra State, excluding those on industrial attachment, seaways, teaching practice, probation, suspension. So, as I said, it is a set of target population that the researcher can reach. So, during the time of research, the accessible population will mean those present, those who have one reason or the other to be absent from campus, whether it is sick leave, they are not accessible and therefore not that part of target population will not be studied. So, possible range of population size. The population size could be few, many, or numerous. For instance, studies dealing with administrative styles of university registrars in Anambra State, the population size will be few. The ones that deal with teachers' job satisfaction in Kogi State, the population size will be many. If you take a topic that has to do with student study habits in Imo State, the population will be numerous because it's going to involve all students at all levels and whatever year they are in their schooling. When do we study entire population or part of it? A researcher can study the entire population when the population size is few or small. The population shares an uncommon characteristics. Example, students with exceptional problem or IQ, when the sole aim of the study is to count or do census. When these conditions are not present, the researcher will study part of the population which is popularly known and called as sample. What is a sample? A sample is a part of population selected for study. It is a subset or fraction of a population selected to participate in the study. It is made up of the members of the study population from which the researcher collects data. A research sample must be a true representative of the population. What do we mean by being a true representative? A representative sample is one which accurately reflects the characteristics, diversity, and proportion of the population. We determine the population size. When you are researching, you have to determine your population size. To determine the sample size, when we are studying population, we take part of it, which is sample, and you have to determine this sample size. So what we are saying now is, how do we determine sample size? We leverage on a number of things, some equations, some graph, or some basic rules. For instance, we have the Yemen's equation for sample calculation, sample size calculation. We have a researcher advisor's graph, the one they published in 2006. Then we have the general rule that a more representative sample will yield better results. Factors to consider in choice of a sample size. The representativeness of the sample, which is more important than the sample size, is normally considered. Another thing we consider is variability of the population to be sampled. A homogeneous population can do with smaller sample, while a heterogeneous population necessitates a larger sample. The number of variables being studied. As the number of variables increases, the sample size also needs to increase. Type of research being conducted. Generally, qualitative research, exploratory research, case studies, experimental or quasi-experimental studies require relatively small samples. Descriptive studies need large samples. Sometimes the statistical analysis that will be used or statistical package will also determine the size of sample. For instance, if one is working on instrumentation and you are going to analyze your research with any of the RIT item response theory software, your sample size must be a minimum of 500. And sampling error. It is the difference between the sample statistics and the population parameters. It can be caused by random chance due to non-representativeness of the sample. It can also be caused by sample size or sampling methods. It can be minimized by increasing the sample size, using our probability sampling techniques, and improving sampling frame. You know that we have population, and it is the population we study. But normally, when we take part of its sample, if we collect data from sample, at the end of it all, we have to generalize what we have from sample to the population. And that's exactly the reason behind when we talk of sample being representative of the population. So The extent your sample is a true representation, to that extent, you can talk about your sampling error. The smaller the sampling error, the better job you have done. The more valid or reliable your sample. And when you generalize, it will approximate the true characteristics of the population. Some terminologies in population and sample. Some of them are elements, sampling frame, sampling units, unit of observation, unit of analysis. There are others. So let's look at elements. Elements are entities, individuals, objects, events, units from where data are collected for research. Individuals, you have people, objects, events. Units, you have schools, households, hospitals, organizations, and so on. Observation, we can look at measurement, threats, behaviors. Using the topic, undergraduate student perception of online learning mode in universities in Anambra State. The elements are all the students in all the levels in all the universities in Anambra State. An element is each of the students. Is an element. Sampling frame. A sampling frame is a list of elements from where sample is drawn. It is a pool of potential participants or units from where the researcher selects the sample. A well-defined sampling frame is important to ensure that the sample is representative of the population. This will ensure validity and generalizability of research findings. Example, list of secondary schools from where physics laboratory will be sampled will constitute a sampling frame. You see, when we will do just one sampling, the sampling frame will be equivalent to the elements. But if we have, or with one, but if we have multi-stage sampling, we are going to have a number of frames. For instance, in the research on students' perception of the online learning mode, we have a sample frame 1 will be universities, sample frame 2 will be faculties, sample frame 3 will be departments, sample frame 4 will be the students. Sampling unit. A sampling unit is the basic or elements that is selected from the sampling frame to be included in the sample. It is the building blocks of the sample. Sampling units are mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive. Where sampling is at one stage, sampling unit is the same as the element. But where sampling is done at different stages, the sampling unit is not the same as the element. Let's take, for instance, in the multi-stage sampling in our topic, undergraduate student perception of online learning mode in universities in Anambra State. The universities, the faculties, departments are sampling units, and the students are the elements. We have unit of observation. It is the entity or unit being studied or measured or observed. It is the element from which information is collected. It ensures that data collection and analysis aligns with purpose, research questions, and hypotheses. Unit of analysis. It refers to the entity, individual, analyzed in a study. Example, it could be individuals, families, schools. The unit of analysis and the unit of observation may be the same in many studies. But if information is not collected from the unit of analysis, they will not be the same. For instance, if information about the principal's administrative style is collected from the teachers, then the unit of analysis, which are the principals, and the unit of observation, which are the teachers, are not the same. So this ensures that study is well designed and that findings are valid and meaningful. What have we actually done in this lesson? This lecture, we have looked at population and sample, and we define population as the totality of persons, objects, events, activities as may be defined by the purpose of the study. Sometimes we study the entire population. Sometimes the population may be large, there may be many, numerous, that you can only study part of it. And this part, we call it a sample. And a major characteristic of a sample is that it must be a true representation of the population. What does that mean? It simply means that the sample, we have the characteristics, the proportions, the influences we have in the population will be in the sample. So we also talked about units or terminologies like elements, sample frame, unit of observation, unit of analysis, and so on. Thank you very much for watching.